Pat McAfee is still mad at Washington State, and I think I have an idea as to why.
You are Locked On Pac-12, your daily podcast on the Pac-12 Conference. It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Locked On Pac-12. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view of the day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and your number one source to stay up to date with our media rights and soon to be mostly team-free, but until then, beloved and loaded Conference of Champions. Like, comment, subscribe, rate, review, please, and thank you wherever you listen to or watch this show. We do have some football things to get to later today, but first, Pat McAfee had an impassioned rant, and I had one of my own. You can listen to that on Mondays or Saturdays. I think it was Saturday's show. Yeah, Saturday's reaction podcast. You go back, listen to that around about the 12-minute mark in the episode. So that's 3 shows ago. I don't know. I lose track. But anyway, Saturday. So Pat McAfee took a shot at Washington State because Ryan Leaf and Jake Dickert were both making comments about what Lee Corso said, which was making Washington State the butt of a joke on College GameDay with regards to them being the No One Wants Us Bowl. Or some people thought it was No One Watches. I thought it was No One Wants Us was the intention. But regardless, they didn't take kindly to being the butt of a joke in a time in which they are, getting left out of the conference realignment discussion. That's what all the indications are right now. There has been no reporting on the Big 12 going after Oregon State and Washington State. I hope they change their mind. I do. So Pat McAfee took some heat for that. He certainly did here on this show. And I defended Jake Dickert and Ryan Leaf both for defending their program, for standing up for their school, for their fans, for their players, for everybody. And McAfee went back and doubled down on it. So talking about, Lee Corso's original joke and then Kirk Herbstreit, coming to his defense, of course, he said that Lee Corso made a joke, quote, that's real, which is true. I mean, the joke was real. It absolutely was. And I'm not someone who gets offended at jokes. I'm also not someone who doesn't think you don't have a right to respond when somebody makes you the butt of the joke in a world. This is not like taking a shot at a football team. This is not saying, oh, you're not good enough to do this, you're not good enough to do that. Now, that's one thing. That's normal media fodder. This is a much bigger conversation where more people are potentially being impacted negatively by the situation at hand here. And it is not the fault of Oregon State and Washington State for the situation that they are in. They have had no control, no power, no nothing over the course of all of this. And I'll be talking about their lawsuit situation a bit later in the show. But McAfee goes on to double down, and I think that fundamentally the reason why is because he's up there on the stage with Lee Corso, and you can't go up there and sit next to somebody who you're not willing to defend publicly. I think it's that simple. And look, Lee Corso might have been reading a joke that was written for him off the script. We know he's, had health issues and is older and is not the same guy that he once was, though I think he should be on game day doing the headgear until he physically cannot do it anymore because it's such a beloved tradition. But if he's in a situation where he's having to have others come out and defend him for saying something, like I'm coming on here and criticizing McAfee, who could, heck, I don't know, maybe see or listen to this show and say, oh, well, I'm going to respond this way, or I took flack and I'm responding like this, and that's what he did on his show. He's able to do that, and Lee Corso is not, which is why, as I said on Saturday's show, Coach Corso just shouldn't be a regular part of the game day set aside from the headgear selection. Because it's difficult to watch, unfortunately, as someone who has admired Lee Corso my entire life, and I've always looked forward to the headgear pick, and college football doesn't start until the headgear selection has been made. You will not find someone who is more emotional about that, who is more nostalgic about that particular situation, and I think I've made my thoughts on the matter pretty clear. But the fact of the matter is, from a television standpoint, Lee Corso should not be on there as much. He should be on there for the headgear and nothing else. Because if he's making comments that everybody else has to then come to his defense, that's not the way that this should be working. He should be able to either defend himself or he shouldn't be in a position to be making those sorts of comments. That's how I feel about it. So I think that what McAfee and Kirk Herbstreit are doing is defending him at all costs, because they're not just defending Corso, they're defending ESPN. Because ESPN is not going to just take him off because he made a joke about Washington State, nor do I think they necessarily should. Doesn't mean the comment shouldn't be called out, but you can't be working in an environment like that, sitting next to someone who doesn't 100% have your back. That's not going to happen. And I think the only guy who has kind of been on the Washington State side of things amongst the game day crew was Reese Davis, who was trying to kind of reel McAfee back in, saying, well, once you go to Pullman, they'll win you back. And McAfee, again, just shut him down, which was, just utterly ridiculous. But I think he can be a pretty ridiculous guy. So, what's that to be surprised about? But McAfee went on to double and really triple down on his disdain for Washington State and his dislike and his defense of the whole situation. He said, quote, "These people have done a lot for you." Okay. First of all, fact check true. These people have done a lot for you. When my parents do something that I find unacceptable or that I am frustrated with and have every right to be, when the parents come back at you with the response, well, look at everything that I've given you. Yeah, not saying I don't appreciate that. I also, however, don't appreciate what is happening over here. I mean, think about it in the context of sports. A player may have had an outstanding career. Let's say it's a kicker, just for the sake of argument, since Pat McAfee was a punter. Let's say a kicker has historically been really, really good, and then he misses a 20-yard field goal to win a game that has season ramifications. Do you think fans are just going to look at it and go, well, he's had a great career? Like, no, you can be upset with him for that particular moment because that's something that should happen. You should be able to make a 20-yard field goal. Or when your parents are being too overbearing, you have a right to push back and say, hey, this is not okay. It doesn't mean you don't appreciate, like, respect, and love them. It doesn't mean you don't understand what they've done for you. But in what world, just because individuals have done a lot of good things, are they then not accountable for something they've done that is not a great thing? That makes absolutely, positively no sense. So I didn't care for that particular response. And then there were a couple more lines in here. He said, bull bleep, you attacked Kirk Herbstreit the way you did, referring, of course, to Ryan Leaf. Why? If you're going to put your foot in the ground, as Kirk Herbstreit has done, and defend the comment that has been made, why does that not open you up to criticism from the institution who you are going after and who you are making the punchline of a joke? How in the world are you not allowed to respond to that? I think that I think that's utterly ridiculous. And then the most ridiculous line, literally, those three lines, I went, man, you have to be kidding me. And then the most ridiculous one for McAfee came later in the show, really later in the clip that I saw going around. And we just got to get to that because it's so utterly ridiculous. Bird dog shorts, not utterly ridiculous. Utterly fantastic, in fact, is how I would describe them. They make you look good, and their stretch khaki shorts are designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg, giving you a truly sculpted look. Bird dog shorts do the exact same thing as Lululemon, but they fit way better. They fit better than regular shorts that are made of a stiff, restricting cotton, and they're good for any occasion, whether you're going swimming, hiking on a date, hanging out, going walking, hiking, whatever you want. Go to the pool, working out. Like, I could repeat everything twice, and guess what? It would still be true. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnCollege. Enter promo code LockedOnCollege at checkout for a free Bird Dogs water bottle with your order. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnCollege for a free water bottle at checkout. You won't want to take your bird dogs off. We promise you. And I promise you, no matter what, no matter how fired up I am, I always need second segment sips. So let's get back into it here. Most ridiculous quote from McAfee lately. And it's just, I'll get to why it's so strange in a moment. But, I mean, man, Washington State has clearly rubbed him the wrong way. He said, quote, "So for one time, they don't," and then he does a bowing motion, which is kind of funny, and I'll explain in a moment, "and you start getting petty and attack him, F off." Of course, he didn't say F off. He said something else. He starts bowing down, which, like, the hilarious irony of saying someone's not bowing down to Washington State when their rival's mantra is bow down to Washington. That's, lost on him, I'm sure. But so for one time they don't bow down, you start getting petty and attack him. Excuse me. This is so patently absurd. It is patently absurd. In what world is not making someone a punchline of a joke for a matter that is affecting their future as a university and athletics department? Not doing that is bowing down? Are you kidding me? I mean, are you kidding me? We are talking about matters beyond the football field here. This is not about, I don't believe in your team, I don't think they can do this. These comments are about things outside of football, which is why I'm talking about them, because I find them to be highly objectionable on that front. I mean, Washington State, congratulations, I guess. You're getting some PR here from Pat McAfee, and you've clearly plucked a nerve. Because he is just all hot and bothered about this stuff, swearing at you, cursing at you, getting all upset and everything like that. And it's ridiculous. And I'm with you, Cougar fans. I am in your corner 100%. They want to make a joke about you, guess what? You're going to respond. You've got the right to respond. And them coming in, you're saying, "Oh, you don't get to attack Corso." What? They're not a punching bag. They're not your metaphorical punching bag where you get to make a joke about them and they say nothing and then you can just keep hitting them while they're down. And McAfee was also talking about the whole situation with, Kirk was saying, like, they got to keep the flag in there. What do you mean keep the flag in there? That's a Washington State tradition that their alumni have organized, which he still hasn't taken the time to understand, which surprises me not. Last thing on this before I get to some more stuff outside of football. Don't worry, football discussion coming later in the show. I believe that Corso called Oregon State against Washington State the Nobody Wants Us Bowl, which does have a shred of truth to it, because at the moment, there isn't a power conference that seems to want them. Now, somebody does, right? The Mountain West would take them, the American would take them, but that's not where they deserve to be playing. And the fact that that's getting lost in all of this is another part of my objection to this entire situation. Is that they're now making it seem as like, oh, they're taking shots at Coach Corso, who's a legend, which he is, and they're taking shots at him, and they're doing all this negative stuff, and yada, yada, yada. The only thing that should be said about Oregon State and Washington State when it comes to realignment is they are making it inexplicably clear right now on the football field. They do not deserve to be relegated to a Group of 5 conference, and yet that it appears where they are headed. So, all right, I'm done with that. Oregon State and Washington State right now they've got court dates set. There's a legal battle ensuing. One thing that I have seen suggested is, man, Oregon State's got to figure this out because, they're going to start losing recruits and they're not in Washington State, the same thing and everything like that. First of all, Jake Dickert, very open and honest. I really like that guy. Would love to get him on the show. But Jake Dickert pointed out in a press conference talking about all this sort of stuff that Washington State doesn't have a 4- or 5-star player on its entire roster right now, which some people from the outside could look at and say, that's why their ceiling is lower. It could be. Absolutely could be. Guess what? They're still a good football team. They're still a really good football team. But so Oregon State lost a commit in 2024, and when you look at the phraseology or perhaps lack thereof with regards to conference realignment, it is reasonable to infer that Oregon State's uncertain conference affiliation in 2024 perhaps led to a decommitment here. Couple things. First of all, and why I don't think either side should be rushing. They still have the opportunity to be the best in the best G5 conference, which is worth something, and neither team has ever been a recruiting powerhouse. They are not in recruiting hubs, nor have they been the sorts of brands that have attracted high caliber high school recruits over and over again. That's not a thing that has happened for either school. There are a select few. I don't know that Washington State's ever had a 5-star commit. I think Oregon State has had one. And anytime they get a 4-star, it kind of, makes news, whether that be in the portal or from the high school ranks. So I don't think that it's a concern, sure, but I mean, determining sooner rather than later that you're going to join a G5 conference doesn't really change the recruiting outlook of, whether or not you join it now or in January. It's the same, which is it's going to be a lower level of competition, but they are also going to be the premier brands in there, and that's going to be their recruiting appeals. Conference championships, players that go on to have success in the NFL, which there have been from both programs, and then also that they have a backdoor way to get into the playoff because hey, you go 12-1, a Power 5 win, a conference championship. Under the model, they might be able to get it. We don't really know what's going to happen with all that sort of stuff. So that's the first thing. The second thing, and why I don't think there needs to be a big hurry here, is if you're the Beavs and the Cougs, being in a hurry is focusing too much on 2024, right? Their most likely play here is get into a G5 league, probably the Mountain West in some form or fashion, figure out all the logistics, make it the best television product possible, and then try to make themselves the top targets for realignment when the next round happens 5, 6, 7, 8 years down the line, whenever that is. That's how I believe they are thinking and how they should be thinking right now. So when you're playing a long game like that, focusing on, a recruit that decommitted for 2024, or we can't tell our recruits what conference we're playing in right now, issues are larger than that. And this is the age of the transfer portal. Let's say because of this uncertainty over the next couple of months, more kids decommit or they don't get a bunch of recruits from the high school ranks. Okay, that might very well happen. And if they did it sooner, they might be able to recruit better. Okay, I accept that point. However, this is the age of the transfer portal. They are able to add talent. Need I remind you that their quarterbacks are both transfer portal additions at one point in time, and they are going to be able to attract the caliber of talent that they would have been able to anyway, most likely. Would you get DJU if you're playing in the Mountain West? Maybe not. Maybe not. But Power 5 players routinely are going to play G5 and FCS football. It happens all the time. There are going to be options. So you have to think long-term, not short-term here. Going for the short term, I think, and not putting together the best possible package and not letting the legal situation play out, getting as much money as you can, that I don't think serves the interests of their schools in the long run, which is where they need to be looking. And the other thing too is over the next couple months, maybe you can get the Big 12 to change their mind. Maybe you can. I don't know that they can. I think the legal matter with the Pac has to be resolved first because if they're able to exist as a 2-team conference and put a schedule together and, be splitting hundreds of millions of dollars each year for 2 seasons, you can stash that money in reserve. And then when the money goes, down into a G5 conference, you're still going to be able to outspend your opponents. Like that's something they need to explore. So you got to make the best out of the legal situation. And you got to make the best out of the conference situation and just kind of not worry about 2024, which is not a great thing to say. It's not ideal, might not be what those schools want to hear, but I think the long-term prospects have to take priority over short-term success for, a handful of recruits or a handful of players. Like that's ultimately not going to define the program. That's not going to define the program at either institution. Whether or not they can keep their head coaches interested. And, I've seen Jake Dickert's name get tossed around as a candidate at Michigan State. Really, really hope that doesn't happen. I don't think Jonathan Smith is going anywhere. I mean, maybe he'd follow in Dennis Erickson's footsteps, go to the NFL. I still don't believe that is where he wants to be. I think he is where he wants to be. So I hope both guys are able to stick it out and they're able to make the money work and everything like that. But I think timeline-wise, anyone who's wanting urgency and resolution quickly, I think that is a misguided approach, and I don't believe it's the way that either of the schools are thinking right now. So, we got to talk some football. Lots of football to talk about over at FanDuel. Snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, whether you win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action than, right now. The app is really easy to use, wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. All right, let's talk about some Saturday stakes. Couple things on the line here, and couple things that stood out to me. Let's start with Washington State, and I'll close with Colorado. And we'll get more into these games as the week goes on. Fear not, Thursday, Friday, we'll be talking a lot of football here on the show, but Washington State plays at UCLA this week. They're a 3.5-point underdog as the number 13 team in the country on the road. Last time I saw that was 2022. Michigan State went into Seattle as the number 11 team as a 3.5-point underdog. They promptly got housed. I don't think Washington State's getting housed this week. It is a curious line, to say the least. But Washington State has a big thing on the line. Not just a chance to pick up a quality win against a team in UCLA that I believe is a bowl-eligible team in 2023 and will be. They're sitting at 3-1 right now, coming off the bye. They will have the opportunity to move inside the top 10. But Spencer, it's an unranked win. True. But UCLA's head coach is still this guy named Chip Kelly, and that carries some weight in the college football world. UCLA was, until their loss to Utah last week, or 2 weeks ago rather, week and a half ago at this point in time, I don't know, it's all blurring together, a ranked team inside the top 25. And the three teams in front of Washington State could all lose. I'm not saying they'll all lose. I'm saying they could lose. And I'm just talking about teams 10, 11, and 12. You never know what's going to happen. Now, you kind of do. Right, because it's Washington, Oregon, USC. Washington, Oregon don't play. USC plays Arizona. Okay. Upsets can happen, though, and there's going to be a real chance here. Number 12, Oklahoma, plays number 3, Texas. They're an underdog in that game. Red River Showdown, which I'm excited for because that's a great college football atmosphere. Number 11, Alabama, plays on the road against Texas A&M. Bama's favored by just 2.5. That's a go-either-way football game, according to Vegas. Number 10, Notre Dame, that has won one close game and lost one close game this year, plays at unbeaten number 25 Louisville. They're a 6.5-point favorite there. How curious. So Washington State, it is not underselling things to say a top 10 ranking could be on the line. I think it's pretty likely that Oklahoma loses to Texas. Alabama against Texas A&M, that could go their way. That could absolutely go their way. Notre Dame at number 25, Louisville. Louisville's been pretty solid. Jeff Brom doing a nice job over there in Louisville, Kentucky. So a potential top 10 ranking could be on the line there for Washington State. At the very least, if they win, they will move up a slot. There's no way. I do not see a world in which all of Oklahoma, Alabama, and Notre Dame are all winning those games. I do not see it. They'll go up at least one to be inside the top 12. Could go up more. If they go in and trounce UCLA, think about this. What if they go in and beat UCLA by 17 points and they just completely control the game from the jump? And then Alabama loses to Texas A&M. Oklahoma loses to Texas, but Notre Dame beats Louisville, but they struggle with Louisville. What happens then? What if Alabama beats Texas A&M, but they barely do it, and Texas A&M is unranked right now, and Washington State's win suddenly looks better? I don't know. I'm just saying. A world in which Washington State could be ranked higher than Alabama. Gosh, college football is the best, isn't it? Last thing here I want to close with is Colorado. So Colorado plays at Arizona State this week, and this is after their performance at home in which they, took USC down to the wire more than Trojan fans would have cared for, given a lackluster defensive performance in the second half. Colorado is going to play Arizona State, a team that, before the year, I predicted to be a 3-win football team. Currently, they have 1 win, and it's against an FCS opponent. What do you think Colorado's favored by down in Tempe? ASU played each of their first 4 games at home. They went 1-3. They lost to USC by 14. They got shut out by Fresno State. They lost to Oklahoma State, who's not very good. They barely beat my Southern Utah Thunderbirds by 3 points, and they should have lost the game. Colorado's going in there as a 4-point favorite. Not 14, not 24, 4. A 4-point favorite. Vegas thinks Colorado is a little bit better than Arizona State. All I'm going to say on that game right now is that is an early contender for the Pac-12 prime pick lock of the year. But we have to explore it further, which we will do on tomorrow's show. That line is really curious, and I need to sleep on it. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time. And until then, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.